My name's Richard Collins, and this year I turned 67. People in town know me as the president of a mid-sized construction company. That title probably makes me sound bigger than I really am. Truth is, I started this business with a beat-up pickup truck and 3 workers 30 years ago. Over the years, I poured sweat, weekends, and more sleepless nights than I can count into building it. Now it's respectable, steady, even profitable enough that folks whisper about me being wealthy. But nobody, not even my closest friends, knows exactly how much I've managed to put away. Sometimes I think that's a blessing. Sometimes I think it's a curse. Life was rolling on predictably until one phone call changed everything. It was my only son, Michael. "Dad," he said, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm getting married." For a moment, my heart leapt. My boy, finally settling down. I pictured him as a little kid again, running through the backyard with grass stains on his jeans, and I couldn't help but smile. "Well, congratulations," I said. "Who's the lucky woman?" "She's someone you actually know, Jessica Morgan. She's the marketing manager at your company." I froze for just a second. Jessica? Michael, unlike me, hadn't gone into construction. He'd built his own IT startup from scratch. No help from me, no handouts. He was proud of that. He used to say he didn't want to grow up in my shadow, and truth be told, I admired him for it. He'd done well, very well. "Still, Jessica, how'd you two meet?" I asked. "Last year, during that new product rollout," Michael explained. "She was pulling all-nighters on the marketing strategy, while my team was hammering out the tech. One late night led to another. We got close. I could picture it clearly. Their long nights, the energy of shared struggle, the relief of success. It made sense, but something in my chest felt unsettled. "I see," I said carefully. "Well, marriage is serious, son. Don't rush into it." There was silence on the other end. Then Michael's voice sharpened. "Dad, we've been together a while now. We know each other. I'm not rushing." I realized I'd spoken too quickly, maybe even unfairly. "I didn't mean it that way. I just want the best for you." He softened a little. "You'll see. Why don't we come by this weekend? You can meet her properly." When the call ended, I sat there for a long while staring out my office window. My son was about to marry. I should have been thrilled. But instead, unease gnawed at me. That Saturday, Michael brought Jessica to my home. She was beautiful, no denying it. Sharp suit, perfect hair, and a confident smile. Maybe too confident. When she shook my hand, I caught something in her eyes, a quick, measuring glance. Calculating. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Collins," she said smoothly. "Call me Richard," I offered. Dinner went by in a blur. Jessica laughed at Michael's jokes, leaned toward him with affectionate little touches. To anyone else, they might have looked like the picture of love. But I noticed her smiles toward him were warm, while her glances at me were guarded, cautious. At one point, Jessica turned directly to me. "So, Mr. Collins, will you give us your blessing?" Michael's eyes flicked to mine, expectant. I forced a smile. "Of course. Just don't be in too much of a hurry. Marriage is forever. It deserves time." Michael frowned. "Dad, we've thought this through. We're ready." Jessica's smile tightened for half a second, then softened again. "I understand your worries, but I promise, Richard, I love your son. We'll show you." And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling. She was after something more than just his heart. Over the next week, my doubts festered. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was fatherly protectiveness. But what if it wasn't? What if Jessica wanted Michael for his money, his success, my company, the family fortune? I couldn't risk it, so I came up with a plan. A crazy one. I decided to disappear from my life, disguise myself, step out of my role as Richard Collins, and move in close. Watch Jessica, test her, see who she really was when no one important was looking. I told only one person, Thomas Reed, my oldest friend and business partner. When I explained, his eyes widened. Richard, this is madness. Pretending to be someone else? Playing spy in your son's life? It's the only way I'll know the truth, I said. After a long silence, he sighed. All right, if you're set on this, I'll cover for you at the company. And just like that, my strange second life began. I let my beard grow wild, dyed my hair gray, and stooped my posture. With a little makeup help from a professional friend of Thomas's, my face looked lined and weathered. Instead of tailored suits, I bought faded jeans, a worn jacket, and scuffed work boots. In the mirror, Richard Collins vanished. Staring back at me was Henry Mason, 72 years old, a tired, ordinary retiree. I'd even arranged fake documents, an ID, a resume. And then, I got a job. Not at my company, not in construction. I became a security guard at the upscale apartment complex, where Michael and Jessica lived. The perfect vantage point, close enough to watch, invisible enough to be ignored. The first weeks were surreal. I learned to man the cameras, direct delivery drivers, clear snow in the morning, haul trash at night. Mr. Mason, the head supervisor, said approvingly, "You're catching on quick." I'd nod humbly, keeping my cover. Every day, I saw Michael come and go, phone pressed to his ear, suit, jacket slung over his arm. Sometimes he'd smile at me, not recognizing his own father. "Stay warm out here, sir," he'd say kindly. Those moments cracked my heart open. And Jessica breezed past me with expensive shopping bags, barely sparing a glance. When I once asked her, politely, to help with a heavy trash bag, just as a test, she sighed dramatically and muttered, "This isn't my job," before stalking off. Her sweetness with Michael, her coldness with me, the contrast was unmistakable. Still, I told myself, don't judge too fast. Keep watching. One snowy morning, Jessica slipped near the icy steps. I rushed forward, hand outstretched. She yanked her arm away before I could steady her. "Don't touch me," she snapped. "Just do your job and clear the ice." That night, I lay awake in the tiny guardroom, wondering if I was losing my mind. Then came the call that sealed it. The lobby phone rang. Security desk. It was Jessica. "This is apartment 1500. I dropped a blanket on the balcony. Go get it for me." I hesitated. "Ma'am, that's not part of my duties." Her voice cut sharp. "Then what is your duty? Sitting on your ass watching cameras? Worthless." She slammed the phone down. My hands shook with anger. This wasn't just selfishness. This was contempt. And yet, Michael adored her. I had to know the full truth. The truth came one afternoon when Michael was away on business. I watched the cameras, and my stomach dropped. Jessica entered with another man. Not a coworker, not a cousin. They walked close, too close. An hour later, they left arm in arm. Her face lit with a joy I'd never seen her show Michael. I wanted to storm upstairs, rip the mask off, and shout the truth. But I stayed silent, recording everything in my memory. It wasn't the last time. More late-night visits, more whispered laughter in the hallway. Once, even a kiss in the parking lot. Each time, my chest burned. This was who she truly was. The next evening, I couldn't hold back any longer. When Michael returned with Jessica, I stepped out from the guard station. "Sir, ma'am, could I have a word?" Jessica's eyes narrowed. "We're busy." Michael looked puzzled but nodded. "Sure, let's go inside." In their apartment, I took a deep breath. "What I'm about to say will hurt," I began, my voice trembling. "But you need to hear it. Jessica has been seeing another man." Michael's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" Jessica jumped in. "That's absurd. He's lying." But I described everything I'd seen: the visits, the laughter, the kiss. Michael's hands balled into fists. "Is it true?" Jessica stammered. "It's not what it looked like. He's just a friend." "Friends don't kiss in parking lots at midnight," Michael roared. For the first time, Jessica's mask cracked. She stood there, silent. Michael turned to me. "How do you know all this?" I swallowed hard. It was time. Because to tell him the truth, that I wasn't Henry Mason, the old security guard, but his father, would change everything. Michael's eyes pinned me, demanding an explanation. "How do you know all this?" he asked, voice ragged with disbelief. I swallowed. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Because I've been here, Michael. Watching. Protecting." Jessica's eyes narrowed, sharp as knives. "What is he talking about?" I took a deep breath, then straightened my back, letting the years of disguise fall away. "Son, it's me. It's your father." The room went silent. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic outside, everything faded under the weight of my words. Michael blinked, stunned. He stepped back as though I'd struck him. "What the hell are you saying?" "It's true," I said, my voice trembling. "I've been living here under another name, Henry Mason. I needed to know who she really was. To protect you." For a moment, Michael just stared, his face pale, lips parted. Then anger flooded in, hot and fierce. You were spying on me?" His voice cracked. "You disguised yourself, lied to me, lied to everyone, for what? Because you couldn't trust me to live my own damn life?" "Michael, listen." "No." His fist slammed against the counter, rattling a wine glass. "Do you have any idea how insane this is? Dressing up, like some guard? Hiding in the shadows like a criminal?" Jessica seized the moment, her eyes flashing with triumph. "You see, he's unstable. He's been stalking us." She clutched Michael's arm as though I were a threat. I stepped forward, desperate. "Michael, she's been unfaithful. I saw it with my own eyes. I couldn't let you." "Enough," Michael roared, tearing his arm from Jessica's grasp. "But not looking at her, only me. Even if she was, you had no right. No right to invade my life like this. You're not my warden, you're my father. And right now, I don't even recognize you." His words cut deeper than any blade. Jessica placed a hand on his shoulder, feigning concern. "We should call the police. What he did, it's disturbing. Dangerous." I turned to her, my voice low and steady. "You can spin this however you like, Jessica. But you and I both know what I saw." For the first time, her mask cracked. A flicker of panic, but she quickly smoothed it over, whispering something into Michael's ear. Michael shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "Get out, Dad. Just get out before I say something I can't take back. Michael, leave." The command in his voice hit me like a sledgehammer. My own son, banishing me from his home. I looked at him one last time, my boy, my flesh and blood, standing beside a woman who would destroy him. His jaw was clenched, his eyes blazing with anger, not just at her, but at me. Especially me. I wanted to say more. To beg, to explain, but the words died on my tongue. So I turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind me. The night air was cold against my face as I stepped back into the parking lot. Snowflakes drifted down, melting on my cheeks like tears I refused to shed. I'd uncovered Jessica's betrayal. I'd revealed my secret. And yet, somehow, I was the one cast out, the villain in my son's eyes. Back in the tiny guardroom, I peeled off the wig, the makeup, the false beard. In the cracked mirror, Richard Collins stared back at me, a father who had gambled everything for the truth and lost more than he'd ever feared. For the first time in years, I felt truly old. The next morning, I drove back to my house on the edge of town. A big colonial-style place with white shutters and a wide porch. Though it felt empty now, my late wife, Ellen, had always kept it warm, flowers on the sill, cookies baking, music floating from the old record player. After she passed, I filled it with work, papers, meetings, late nights at the office. Now, the silence pressed in heavy. I brewed coffee I didn't drink. I sat in my office chair staring at the desk I'd built with my own hands. My phone buzzed again and again, but not with Michael's name. Just Thomas, my old friend, my partner. When I finally picked up, his voice was sharp. "What the hell happened, Richard?" Michael called me in the middle of the night. Sounded like he'd been through a war. I rubbed my eyes. "He hates me, Tom. Thinks I'm a lunatic. You lied to him, Rich. Pretended to be someone else. Can you blame him?" "I was protecting him." A long silence. Then, were you protecting him or were you trying to control him? That question lodged like a stone in my chest. Days turned to weeks. Michael didn't call. When I reached out, he ignored me. Once, I drove past his office just to catch a glimpse of him through the window. He looked thinner, his hair messier than usual, a shadow on his face. But still, he laughed at something his colleague said. He was surviving without me. At the company, rumors spread. Employees whispered about the president going off the rails, disguising himself as a janitor or guard. Some thought it was a joke. Others thought I'd lost my mind. I could feel the doubt seeping in, even among people who'd once respected me. I handed more duties to Thomas. Told him I needed a break. In truth, I didn't have the stomach to walk those halls anymore. Loneliness has a way of dragging up ghosts. At night, I dreamed of Ellen. The first time we met, at a 4th of July picnic. Her hair tied back, her laugh carrying over the field. The night we brought Michael home from the hospital. Her voice, sharp but gentle, saying, "Don't be too hard on him, Richard. He needs room to grow." I never listened enough, always too busy building the business, chasing contracts, counting dollars. I told myself it was for them, for Michael's future. Now, sitting alone in the quiet house, I wondered if it had all been for nothing. Jessica and Michael's wedding plans stalled. I heard through the grapevine, mutual acquaintances, whispered updates, that there were fights. Jessica's name showed up in town gossip linked to another man. A lawyer this time. Each time I heard it, a bitter satisfaction flared inside me. Proof I'd been right, but it was hollow, because Michael wasn't ready to hear it from me. To him, I was the traitor, not her. I kept waiting for his call. Kept rehearsing what I'd say. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lied. But I couldn't stand by and watch you get hurt." But the phone stayed silent. One evening, I found myself at the cemetery, standing before Ellen's grave. The stone was simple, carved with her name, and the words "beloved wife and mother." I knelt in the snow, brushing it off the letters. "I've made a mess of things," I whispered. "I tried to protect him, the way I thought you would. But all I've done is drive him away." The wind stirred the trees overhead, a cold shiver through the branches. For a moment, I almost imagined she was answering, telling me to let go, to trust. But letting go had never been my strong suit. That winter stretched on forever. Each day bled into the next. The company ran without me. The house echoed with silence. I began to wonder if this was how it would end, me, alone with my regrets. My son lost to me forever. And then, one gray afternoon in early spring, the knock came at my door. The knock was hesitant. 3 short taps that barely echoed down the hallway. I almost ignored it. These days, unannounced visits usually meant a package left on the porch, or a stranger with pamphlets about salvation or politics. But something in that rhythm tugged at me, like a voice from another time. When I opened the door, there he was. Michael. He looked older than the last time I had seen him, older than a man his age should. His hair, always so carefully trimmed, was mussed. His tie hung loose around his neck, the top button of his shirt undone. There were shadows under his eyes, the kind that spoke of too many nights without rest. For a moment, neither of us moved. We just stared, father and son, with years of hurt stacked between us. "Can I come in?" he asked finally, his voice quiet, almost uncertain. I stepped aside without a word. He walked into the living room, glanced around at the familiar furniture, as if it belonged to another life. The same couch he'd sprawled across as a boy. The same shelves lined with Ellen's old books. I saw him notice the photo on the mantel. Ellen in her garden, sun hat tilted, her smile warm and steady. His jaw tightened, and he looked away. We sat across from each other, the silence pressing down like a weight. I searched his face for clues. Was he angry? Resigned? Broken? I couldn't tell. Finally, he spoke. "Jessica's gone." The words dropped like a stone into the room. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just waited. "She left a month ago," he continued, voice flat. "Packed up while I was at work. Turns out you were right. About everything. About the lies, the other man, the games she was playing. All of it." He let out a laugh, short and bitter. "I should have seen it. God, I should have seen it." I wanted to reach across, to put a hand on his shoulder, to say something to soften the edges of his pain. But I'd lost the right to comfort him. Not after what I'd done. "Michael," he held up a hand, cutting me off. Don't say you warned me. Don't tell me you knew. I already know. I know now." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fingers laced tight like he was holding himself together by force. "What I can't figure out is why you did it the way you did. The disguises, the spying. Why not just talk to me? Why not just be honest?" The shame burned in me, hot and sharp. Because I was afraid you wouldn't listen. Because every time I tried, you shut me out. I was desperate, Michael. I couldn't stand the thought of losing you, to her, to the life she wanted to carve out of you. "You almost lost me anyway," he said, voice breaking on the last word. The truth of it hit me harder than any accusation. "I was wrong," I said, my own voice unsteady. "Not about her, but about how I handled it. I thought I was protecting you, but the truth is, I was protecting myself. From the fear of being left behind. From the fear that you'd need me less." Michael leaned back, his head against the chair, eyes shut. He stayed like that for a long time. When he opened them again, they were wet, but steady. "You always had to be in control, Dad," he said. "Even when I was a kid." Every decision, what sports I played, what friends I had, where I went to college. You never let me breathe. I closed my eyes, and memories rushed in, me, standing on the sidelines of his little league games, shouting advice, correcting his form even as he glared at me from the field. Me pushing him to join the debate team instead of the art club he'd wanted. Me insisting he work summers at the company, instead of taking a road trip with his friends. I wanted you to succeed, I whispered. To be safe, to have a life that mattered. He shook his head. No, you wanted me to be you. The words stung because they were true. We sat in silence, the ticking of the mantle clock, marking every second of our shared regret. Finally, he exhaled, long and shaky. I'm angry at you, he said. I probably will be for a long time. You don't get to erase that. But I'm angrier at myself, for not seeing her for who she was. For pushing you away when maybe I should have listened. I don't blame you, I said softly. If anyone deserves the blame, it's me. I'd rather carry your anger than watch you be destroyed by her. His eyes searched mine, as if weighing the sincerity of my words. For a moment, something flickered there. Something softer. Something almost like the boy he used to be. I don't want us to end like this, he said finally. Not in anger, not in silence. I don't want your last years to be a wall between us. My throat tightened. Ellen would have wept to hear those words. In the weeks that followed, Michael began visiting more often. At first, it was cautious, tentative, as if testing whether the bridge between us could hold. He'd bring over papers from the company, or stop by with takeout, or sit with me on the porch after work. Sometimes he barely spoke, sometimes he just needed to be near someone who knew him before the mess. Other times, we argued, about the company, about politics, about the past. But the arguments felt different now. Less like battles, and more like proof that we were both still fighting for something worth saving. One Saturday, he showed up with a fishing rod slung over his shoulder. You still have the old one in the garage? He asked. I blinked at him, caught off guard. Why? Let's go. Just like we used to. The lake hadn't changed. The water was still, reflecting the sky like a sheet of glass. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. We cast our lines in silence, the ripples spreading slowly across the surface. We didn't catch a thing, but it didn't matter. Sitting side by side, the rod heavy in my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. Michael broke the silence. You know, when I was a kid, I hated these trips. I thought you were trying to teach me patience. But really, you were just trying to keep me close. I chuckled softly, guilty as charged. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in a long while, there wasn't anger in his eyes. Only exhaustion, and something like forgiveness struggling to take root. At the company, the changes were subtle at first. Michael started attending board meetings with me, at Thomas's urging. He asked questions, listened more than he spoke. But when he did speak, people leaned in. He had a way of disarming them with honesty, something I'd never mastered. One afternoon, as we left a meeting, I said, "You're better at this than I ever was." He shook his head. "No, just different." "No," I said firmly. "Better. You see people as people, not just as gears in a machine. That's what will make you a good leader." For the first time, he didn't argue. He just gave me a small, weary smile. We weren't healed, not entirely. The scars would always be there. But the walls had cracks now, and through them, light was beginning to filter in. For the first time in years, I let myself hope. Summer arrived with a gentleness I hadn't felt in years. The air was warm without being heavy, the days long but not oppressive. I spent more time on the porch, in the rocking chair that had once belonged to Ellen, letting the evenings drift by. The fireflies appeared like tiny lanterns scattered in the grass, and crickets filled the silence with their steady chorus. Sometimes I sat alone, thinking of her, how she used to hum as she watered her roses, how she'd tease me for burning steaks on the grill, how she always seemed to know the right words when Michael and I clashed. She would have known how to bridge the gap between us before it became a chasm. I missed her wisdom as much as her touch. But sometimes, Michael joined me. At first, he hovered at the railing, phone in hand, like a visitor uncertain whether to stay. Over time, he began to sit beside me, folding his long frame into the other chair, shoulders hunched as if he carried too much of the world. We didn't always talk. Sometimes we just listened to the night together, letting the quiet do what words couldn't. One evening, as the sun slid low and painted the yard gold, he asked, "Do you ever regret it? The way you lived? The choices you made?" The question was heavy, heavier than any I'd expected. I turned it over carefully. "I do," I said. "More than I can count. I regret the times I pushed too hard, the times I didn't listen, the ways I tried to shape you into something you weren't. I regret letting fear guide me more than trust." But I looked at him, my voice catching. "I never regret loving you. Everything I did, however wrong, came from that place." Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring into the yard. His silence stretched, and I wondered if I'd said too much or not enough. Then he whispered, "I know." 2 simple words, but they cracked something open in me. The weeks slipped into months. Our rhythm grew steadier. He called more often, sometimes about the company, sometimes about nothing at all. We argued, yes, but it felt different now. Less about control, more about honesty. And when he grew quiet, I let him be. I was learning, at last, to step back. He began to invite me into his world again, in small ways. We went fishing, though the lake yielded nothing. We grilled steaks in the backyard, the smell of charred meat thick in the summer air. He teased me about overcooking them, and I laughed, a sound that felt rusty but good. One Saturday, he brought over a photo album he'd dug up from the attic. We sat at the kitchen table flipping through it, Michael at 6, with frosting smeared across his cheeks, Ellen laughing beside him. Michael at 12, awkward in his baseball uniform, glove too big for his hand. "You remember this game?" he asked, pointing at the photo. "Of course," I said. "You struck out twice and then hit a double in the last inning. You sulked for the rest of the night anyway." He chuckled, shaking his head. "You always remember the details." "I always remembered you," I said quietly. His hand lingered on the page, and though he didn't look up, I saw the corners of his mouth twitch, just slightly. At the company, the transition deepened. Thomas retired officially, and Michael stepped into the role of president. The first time I watched him address the staff, I stayed in the back, half hidden, just to see how he carried himself. He spoke with calm assurance, thanking people by name, sharing his vision without drowning them in numbers. When the applause rose, it wasn't polite, it was genuine. Afterward, Thomas leaned over to me and said, "He's the right one for this, Richard. You know that now, don't you?" "I do," I said, pride swelling in my chest. And for once, I meant it without hesitation. It struck me then that leadership was no longer mine to wield. My time of steering, of commanding, was over. Michael's era had begun, and strangely, instead of grief, I felt relief. As the seasons turned, my days grew quieter. I walked in the mornings, slower than I used to, but steady. I read in the afternoons, Ellen's favorite novels dog-eared from years of use. Sometimes I cooked simple meals. Sometimes Michael dropped by with takeout. His voice filling the house that had grown too still. Loneliness still visited me, sharp and sudden. Especially at night when the shadows stretched long. I missed Ellen with an ache that never dulled. There were evenings when I woke reaching across the bed for her, only to find cool emptiness. But now, I carried Michael's voice with me too, I know. It didn't erase the pain, but it steadied me. On his 40th birthday, I gave him a letter I had written weeks earlier. I'd rewritten it 3 times before I found the words I needed. In it, I admitted my failures. The pressure, the control, the disguise that nearly destroyed us. I told him I was proud of him, not for the company he now led, but for the man he had become in spite of me. He read it in silence at the table, his brow furrowed. When he finished, he folded it carefully, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it into his jacket pocket. He didn't speak, not then. But later that night, as he hugged me before leaving, he whispered, "Thank you." It was enough. I know my time is shorter now. I feel it in my bones, in the slowing of my step. In the long nights when sleep evades me, I think about Ellen more often, about what she would say. If she could see us now, I like to imagine her smiling, relieved that we found our way back to each other, however late. I don't expect perfection anymore. I don't expect to erase the scars of the past. But I do expect this, that when the day comes and I leave this world, Michael will not remember me only for the control, the mistakes, or the bitterness. He will remember the fishing trips, the porch conversations, the quiet evenings flipping through photo albums. He will remember the man who, however flawed, never stopped loving him. It's not the ending Ellen would have written, hers would have been cleaner, gentler, easier. But it is ours, and at last, it feels enough.
Thank you for watching, for listening, and for sharing this time with me. Stories like this remind us of the love that binds us, the losses that shape us, and the incredible resilience that carries us through. If you enjoyed this journey, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so you don't miss the next story. And I'd love to hear from you. Share your own memories, family stories, or thoughts in the comments below. Who knows, maybe your story could inspire the next video. Until next time, take care, and keep cherishing the chapters of your life.